The night was quiet at Arecibo Observatory. Most of the staff had gone home except for Dr. Alan Carter. He stayed late most nights, eyes fixed on his computer screen, searching the stars for something unusual. Alan was 52 years old, with gray hair at his temples and wrinkles around his eyes from years of staring at screens and telescope data. He sipped cold coffee and rubbed his tired eyes. The computer suddenly beeped. Alan looked at the screen and sat up straight. The signal pattern was unlike anything he had seen before. It wasn't random noise. It had structure, rhythm, and purpose. Alan's hands shook as he picked up his phone. "Patricia, you need to see this now," he said when Dr. Patricia Walsh answered. Patricia arrived 30 minutes later. She had been working at the observatory for 20 years. If anyone could confirm what Alan found, it was her. "It's coming from the direction of Alpha Centauri," Alan explained, as Patricia looked at the data. "But the signal characteristics suggest it's not actually from the star itself." Patricia's eyes widened. "This is artificial. Someone sent this." For the next 3 days, they worked without much sleep. Other scientists joined them. They ran the signal through every analysis program they had. Finally, they broke the code. "It's a message," Patricia said to the room full of tired scientists, "and it's not friendly." The message was simple: submit or perish. Within hours, government officials arrived at Arecibo. The scientists explained that the signal came from what appeared to be a massive fleet of ships using Alpha Centauri to hide their approach. Based on the signal strength and movement patterns, the fleet would reach Earth in 6 months. 1 week later, the United Nations called an emergency meeting. Leaders from every nation gathered in New York. The room buzzed with fear and angry voices. General Susan Miller stood at the podium. She was the head of Earth's newly formed Unified Defense Command. For 10 minutes, she explained Earth's military capabilities compared to what they could determine about the alien fleet. "The truth is," she concluded, "we are outmatched. Their technology appears to be at least 3 centuries ahead of ours. Their ships number in the hundreds. We have detected weapon systems that could destroy our major cities from orbit without the aliens ever needing to land." The room fell silent. Then the shouting began. Some leaders wanted to prepare for war anyway. Others suggested immediate surrender to save lives. A few proposed trying to hide Earth's civilization by shutting down all power and technology. In the middle of the chaos, a man stood up from one of the middle rows. He wasn't shouting. He simply raised his hand and waited to be noticed. It took several minutes before the room quieted enough for him to speak. "My name is Jack Nelson," he said. His voice was calm but carried throughout the room. Jack was 63 years old with a plain face that was easy to forget. He had worked as a diplomat for 40 years, solving conflicts that others thought impossible. "I propose we send them only one warning," Jack said. The Secretary General frowned. "Mr. Nelson, did you not hear General Miller? We cannot win a military conflict with these aliens." "I didn't say anything about military action," Jack replied. "I said we should send them a warning, just one." "And what good would that do?" asked the Russian president. Jack walked to the front of the room. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the podium. General Miller stepped aside. "Throughout human history," Jack began, "we have faced enemies who seemed unbeatable. Empires with better weapons, more soldiers, and greater resources. Yet time and again the invaders lost, not because the defenders were stronger, but because they underestimated human determination and creativity." He looked around the room. "These aliens believe we will either surrender or fight in a way they understand. Either option leads to our defeat, so we do neither." "Then what do we do?" asked the Chinese premier. "We send them one warning. Not a threat, not a plea, just a simple statement that Earth has never been successfully conquered, and they have one chance to reconsider." Some people laughed. Others shook their heads. "And then?" asked the Secretary General. "Then we prepare," Jack said. "Not for a conventional war, but for something the aliens cannot predict or understand." For the next hour, Jack explained his plan. It wasn't about matching the aliens' firepower. It was about psychology, about making them doubt their assumptions about humans. By the end of his speech, the room was quiet again, but not from fear. People were thinking, considering, seeing possibilities they hadn't before. "This is insane," the British Prime Minister finally said. "But it might be our only option." The vote was nearly unanimous. Earth would send one warning, along with a carefully selected history of human conflict. Every invasion that failed. Every time a smaller force defeated a larger one through clever tactics and sheer determination. 2 days later, Earth's most powerful radio telescopes sent the message toward the approaching fleet. It was simple. "We acknowledge your arrival. Be advised, Earth has never been successfully conquered. We extend one opportunity to reconsider." The response came 3 weeks later. It was broadcast on every frequency, overriding all radio and television signals worldwide. The alien face on screens everywhere looked vaguely reptilian, with purple-gray skin and yellow eyes with vertical pupils. "I am Admiral Zorax of the Galactic Dominion," the alien said in perfect English. "Your warning is noted and dismissed. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. Your soldiers cannot match our warriors bred for combat and victory. Prepare for our arrival. Those who surrender will live as servants. Those who resist will perish." The broadcast ended. Across the world, people looked at each other in fear and confusion. But in the United Nations building, Jack Nelson smiled slightly. "They responded exactly as I expected," he told the Emergency Council. "They're arrogant. They think they understand us. That's their first mistake." "And what's their second mistake?" asked General Miller. "They threatened us publicly," Jack said. "Now every human on Earth knows what's coming, and humans are never more dangerous than when backed into a corner." The preparations began immediately. But they weren't what the Dominion would expect. Earth was getting ready for a war unlike any fought before, one that would teach the Galactic Dominion why their single warning should have been heeded. In the months that followed, Earth changed. The old fights between nations stopped. For the first time in human history, everyone worked together for survival. Jack Nelson led a special team with people from every major country. They worked in an underground base near Geneva. Their job wasn't to build weapons, but to understand the enemy. "The Dominion expects us to either surrender or fight in a way they understand," Jack explained to his team. "We will do neither." Scientists and military experts studied the alien message and the brief video of Admiral Zorax. They noticed small details: how the alien held himself, the tone of his voice, the look in his yellow eyes. "They're confident because they've never failed," said Mia Johnson, a behavior expert who studied animal predators before joining Jack's team. "But that's also a weakness. They don't know how to handle surprises." Meanwhile, regular people prepared in their own ways. They didn't build bunkers or stockpile food as much as learn new skills. Farmers learned basic combat. Soldiers studied farming. Computer programmers practiced living in the wilderness. Everyone learned to adapt. General Miller met with Jack every week. She wasn't fully convinced by his plan. "We should be building better weapons," she argued during one meeting. "Something that can at least hurt their ships?" "We are," Jack replied calmly. "But not the kind you're thinking of." He showed her to a large room where scientists worked with strange equipment. "This is Dr. Olivia Hernandez," Jack said, introducing a woman in her 40s with short black hair. "She used to study viruses. Now she's creating something special for our visitors." "A biological weapon?" General Miller asked. "Not exactly," Olivia said. "From the brief video, we analyzed the alien skin and breathing patterns. We're developing compounds that won't harm them, but will make their environmental systems malfunction. Imagine their suits suddenly smelling like rotting eggs or their ship air feeling too thick to breathe properly." General Miller looked confused. "That won't stop them." "It's not meant to stop them," Jack explained. "It's meant to confuse them, to make them waste time and resources trying to fix problems they don't understand." Similar work happened around the world. In South Korea, engineers developed tiny drones that looked like local insects. In Brazil, chemists created fog that would interfere with alien sensors but appear natural. In Nigeria, Communication experts found ways to send messages that seemed like background radiation. None of these would win a direct fight, but together, they formed a strategy based on confusion, misdirection, and psychological impact. As the II months passed, the alien fleet grew closer. Astronomers tracked their approach. They would enter Earth's solar system in less than 2 weeks. World leaders gathered again at the United Nations. The mood was different now. Less panic, more determination. Are we ready? The Secretary General asked. Jack stood up. No, he said honestly, but neither are they. On screens around the room, images appeared showing Earth's preparations. Not just military bases and new weapons, but ordinary people training, communities organizing, factories being repurposed to make unusual items rather than traditional weapons. The Dominion thinks they know what conquering a planet looks like, Jack continued. They expect resistance at the beginning, then surrender when people realize they can't win. That's what has happened on hundreds of worlds. He walked to the center of the room. But humans don't follow that pattern. Throughout our history, occupation forces have learned that controlling territory isn't the same as winning. The American Revolution, the Vietnamese resistance, the Afghan fighters, all faced enemies with superior technology and numbers. All prevailed through determination and adaptability. Jack pointed to a map showing Earth. We won't meet their ships in space. We can't win that battle. We will let them land. We will let them think they're winning. And then, he smiled slightly, then we will teach them why our warning should have been heeded. 3 days later, the first Dominion ships entered the solar system. They moved past Neptune, then Uranus, then Saturn, their engines glowing purple against the blackness of space. Commander Kate Rogers watched from the International Space Station. Earth had decided not to evacuate the station. Instead, it became an observation post. They're not being cautious, Kate reported. They're moving in a standard formation, not expecting any resistance until they reach Earth. Jack received the report in the underground base. Good, he said. They're following their usual playbook. Earth's military forces took hidden positions. They didn't deploy in the open where they would be easy targets. Instead, they merged with civilian populations and natural environments. Special teams prepared to implement Jack's unusual strategies. Each had a specific task designed not to defeat the aliens directly, but to create confusion, waste their time, and gather information about their weaknesses. Ordinary people waited too. Some were scared, but most felt a strange calm. They had done all they could to prepare. Now they would face whatever came. Admiral Zorak stood on the bridge of his flagship as they passed Mars. On his view screen, Earth grew larger, a blue jewel against the darkness. Any response to our final demand for surrender? He asked his communication officer. None, Admiral, the officer replied. They have been silent since our first exchange. Zorax made a sound that might have been a laugh. As expected, their primitive defenses are probably aiming at us now for all the good it will do them. He turned to his war council. Begin the standard conquest pattern. Eliminate their military bases and power infrastructure first. Avoid major population centers for now. We need workers for the resource extraction. The Dominion ships moved into position around Earth. Their weapons powered up, glowing with energy that could destroy cities. On Earth, Jack Nelson looked up at the night sky. He could see the alien ships as bright dots moving between the stars. And so it begins, he said quietly. The first attacks came at dawn. Bright beams of energy shot from the Dominion ships, targeting military bases, power plants, and communication centers across the globe. But many of the targets were already empty, or contained decoys. The real preparations were elsewhere, hidden, and waiting. The Galactic Dominion had arrived. They had received Earth's one warning. They had ignored it. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. The first week of the invasion went exactly as Admiral Zorax planned. His ships destroyed military bases, power plants, and communication towers across the planet. His ground troops landed and secured key locations. Humans died by the thousands. But something was wrong. They aren't surrendering, Zorax said to his second-in-command. 7 days and no official surrender from any major nation. They are primitive, Admiral, his officer replied. Perhaps they don't understand the concept of formal surrender. Zorax looked at the holographic map showing their progress. They controlled landing zones on every continent, but the areas under their control were small, like islands in a vast ocean of resistance. Send more troops to these population centers, he ordered, pointing to several cities. They will surrender when they see our full might. On Earth, things looked very different. William Porter had been a construction worker in Detroit before the invasion. Now he led 30 people hiding in the city's old subway tunnels. They weren't soldiers. They were teachers, nurses, factory workers, and students. Remember the plan? Will told his group. We don't try to kill them. We watch them, learn their patterns, and report back. That night they observed an alien patrol moving through the empty streets. The aliens moved in perfect formation, their armor glowing slightly in the dark. Will took careful notes about their movements, the equipment they carried, and how they communicated with each other. Similar groups watched the aliens all over the world. They noticed things. The aliens always followed the same patrol routes. They used the same signals. They never changed their tactics unless directly ordered to. All this information went back to Jack Nelson and his team in the underground base. They're predictable, Jack told General Miller as they studied the reports. They've conquered so many worlds the same way that they don't know how to adapt. That's something at least, Miller replied. But they're still killing our people and destroying our cities. Not for long, Jack said. Phase 2 begins tonight. Across the world, resistance groups received new instructions. Now that they understood the alien patterns, it was time to disrupt them. In Chicago, Nurse Samantha Brown led her team to a water treatment plant the aliens had secured. They didn't attack the aliens directly. Instead, they added a special chemical to the water intake. A compound Dr. Olivia Hernandez had developed based on their observations of alien biology. The chemical wouldn't harm the aliens. It would just make them itchy. Very, very itchy. In Rio de Janeiro, former taxi driver Carlos Mendez and his group released thousands of small drones designed to look like local insects. The drones didn't have weapons. They just made noises near alien communication devices, noises that exactly matched their transmission frequencies. In Nairobi, teacher Grace Okafor led her team to spread a special pollen near alien sensors. The pollen didn't damage the sensors. It just made them less accurate, showing movements where there were none and missing actual movements nearby. None of these actions would defeat the Dominion, but together, they created problems the aliens had never faced before. The next morning, Admiral Zorax received disturbing reports. Troops were experiencing skin irritations that their medical systems couldn't identify. Communications were filled with strange interference. Sensors were malfunctioning across multiple landing zones. It must be the planet's environment, his science officer suggested. Perhaps something in the atmosphere we didn't detect initially. Fix it, Zorax ordered. I want those problems solved by tomorrow. But the next day brought new issues. Alien vehicles developed engine problems when they passed through certain areas. Patrol routes that had been safe suddenly had sinkholes appear. Food supplies developed strange tastes that scanners couldn't identify as harmful, but troops refused to eat. Zorax was furious. These can't all be natural phenomena, he said. The humans are behind this somehow. He ordered harsher measures. More troops, more weapons, more severe punishments for humans who resisted. This played directly into Jack Nelson's strategy. They're responding exactly as we predicted, he told his team. They only know one way to solve problems. Use more force. That makes them use more resources, more troops, more energy. Linda Guzman had been a park ranger before the invasion. Now she used her knowledge of the Rocky Mountains to hide people and supplies in places the aliens couldn't find. When the aliens increased patrols in her area, she didn't fight them. She just made the environment more difficult to navigate. Strange fog appeared in valleys. Paths that were clear one day had fallen trees the next. Wildlife behaved oddly near alien camps, keeping them awake with constant noises. The aliens blamed these problems on Earth's primitive and hostile environment. They didn't realize these effects were carefully created by humans who knew their land intimately. 3 months into the invasion, the Dominion controlled only 15% of Earth's surface, far less than their typical conquest timeline predicted. Their troops were tired, confused, and increasingly nervous. They had expected an easy victory over primitives. Instead, they faced problems they couldn't solve or even properly identify. In his flagship above Earth, Admiral Zorax faced the first real challenge of his career. "We need to change tactics," he announced to his war council. "Clearly, these humans are more cunning than we anticipated." "What do you suggest, Admiral?" asked his second-in-command. "We've been too gentle," Zorax replied. "We tried to preserve the population and infrastructure for later use. That ends now. We will show them the full power of the Dominion." He ordered orbital strikes on major cities. His ships positioned themselves and prepared to fire weapons that could turn cities to ash in seconds. In the underground base, Jack Nelson received the warning from Kate Rogers on the space station. "They're moving their ships into bombardment formation," Kate reported. "They're going to start destroying cities." Jack smiled, surprising General Miller. "Why are you smiling?" she asked. "They're about to kill millions of people." "No," Jack said. "They're about to discover why our warning should have been taken seriously." He turned to a young man sitting at a computer. "Steve, is your team ready?" Steve Gardner had been developing video games before the invasion. Now he led a team of hackers who had been studying alien computer systems for months. "We're ready," Steve said. "The moment they activate their main weapon systems, we'll have our opening." The Dominion ships moved into position. Admiral Zorax gave the order to fire. Nothing happened. He repeated the order. More forcefully, this time is still nothing. On every ship in the fleet, control systems stopped responding. Emergency lights came on. Backup systems activated, then failed as well. "What is happening?" Zorax demanded. No one had an answer. The Dominion had never considered that a primitive species could hack into their advanced systems. They had never needed the kinds of security that would prevent such attacks. It was their most critical mistake. The humans hadn't tried to build weapons that could destroy Dominion ships. They had found a way to turn the ship's own systems against them. Phase 3 of Earth's defense had begun. The Dominion fleet hung in space, dead in the sky. For 6 hours, not a single alien ship could fire its weapons or change position. Admiral Zorax ordered his engineers to fix the problem, but they couldn't even explain what had happened. On Earth, Steve Gardner and his team worked tirelessly in their hidden base beneath an old library in Seattle. They had spent months studying the signals from alien ships, looking for patterns and weaknesses. Now their work was paying off. "We won't have control of their systems for long," Steve told Jack Nelson over a secure line. "Maybe another 12 hours before they find a way to lock us out." "That's enough time," Jack replied. "Download everything. You can. Every bit of their technology, their star maps, their communication protocols. This was the real purpose of their strategy. Earth couldn't win a direct fight against the Dominion's advanced technology, but they could steal it, all across the planet. Hidden teams like Steve's broke into different parts of the alien network. They weren't trying to destroy it, they were learning from it. Dr. Olivia Hernandez led a team targeting the aliens' medical systems. "Their biology is fascinating," she told her colleagues as data poured in. "Look at how they've engineered their soldiers to survive in different environments." In London, engineer Frank Wilson studied the aliens' power systems. "They're using a form of energy we've theorized about but never managed to create," he said excitedly. "This could change everything." The aliens eventually regained control of their ships, but the damage was done. Humans now had access to centuries of advanced knowledge. Admiral Zorax was furious. "How could primitives possibly hack our systems?" he demanded. "It should be impossible." His chief engineer looked nervous. "They found a weakness we never considered, Admiral. Our systems were designed to resist attacks from technology similar to ours. These humans used methods so old and primitive that our security didn't recognize them as threats." Zorax slammed his fist on the control panel. "Enough excuses. Land more troops, take their cities by force, show no mercy. More alien ships descended. Troops poured out, armed with weapons that could disintegrate a human with a single shot. They advanced on major cities around the world, expecting to crush the remaining resistance. But the cities were mostly empty. The humans weren't gathering in large groups to be easy targets. They had scattered into smaller communities, hiding in places the aliens struggled to search effectively. In the forests outside Atlanta, retired school principal George Howard led his community in constant movement. They never stayed in one place for more than a day. They used the knowledge gained from observing alien patrols to avoid detection. They rely too much on their technology, George explained to his group. They don't know how to track without their sensors. They don't understand our environment. When alien patrols came close, George's people didn't run or fight. They used tricks developed by hunters and wilderness guides. They covered themselves in mud to hide their body heat from alien sensors. They moved with the wind to prevent their scent from being detected. They used the natural sounds of the forest to mask their movements. Similar groups existed everywhere. In Australia's outback, in Siberia's vast wilderness, in the Amazon rainforest, in the mountains of Afghanistan, places where humans had learned to survive harsh conditions for thousands of years, became the perfect hiding spots against alien invaders. The Dominion troops grew frustrated. They were warriors bred for direct combat, not for tracking elusive enemies through unfamiliar terrain. They began making mistakes. 4 months into the invasion, the situation had become a stalemate. The Dominion controlled major landing zones but little else. They couldn't find enough humans to capture for labor. They couldn't secure the resources they had come to extract. In the underground base near Geneva, Jack Nelson met with leaders from around the world. The room was filled with screens showing the current situation. Phase 4 begins today, Jack announced. Now we start pushing them back. Until this point, humans had mostly avoided direct confrontation. They had focused on gathering information, disrupting alien operations, and stealing their technology. Now they would use everything they had learned. Linda Guzman's team in the Rocky Mountains was one of the first to implement the new phase. They had studied the alien patrol schedules until they knew exactly when and where each group would be. They had identified the weaknesses in alien armor, the spots where different pieces connected, the sensors they relied on for vision in Earth's atmosphere. They didn't use conventional weapons. They used specially designed darts that delivered compounds Dr. Hernandez had developed. The compounds didn't kill the aliens. They temporarily disabled their armor's systems or confused their senses. Within an hour, an entire alien patrol was stumbling around blindly in a mountain valley, their communications down, their weapons non-functional. Similar attacks happened across the globe. The humans never engaged in extended battles. They struck quickly, disabled the enemy, and disappeared before reinforcements arrived. The most significant blow came from Steve Gardner's team. Using what they had learned from the alien systems, they developed a virus that spread through the Dominion's communication network. The virus didn't destroy anything, it just changed small, almost unnoticeable things. Supply requests were altered so troops received the wrong equipment. Patrol schedules shifted by minutes or hours. Sensor readings showed threats that weren't there and missed ones that were. The Dominion's greatest advantage, their highly organized, centralized command structure, became their greatest weakness. Admiral Zorax struggled to understand what was happening. Reports from his ground commanders made less sense each day. Some claimed their troops were being attacked by invisible enemies. Others reported equipment malfunctions that engineering couldn't explain. Many simply stopped reporting at all. "We're losing control," his second-in-command finally admitted. "The humans don't fight like any species we've encountered before. They don't try to win battles. They make it impossible for us to fight effectively at all." Zorax made a decision he had never made before. "Pull back," he ordered. "Bring all troops to secure landing zones. We need to regroup and develop a new strategy." But even as the order went out, he wondered if it was already too late. The Dominion had arrived expecting an easy conquest of a primitive world. Instead, they found themselves caught in a web they couldn't see or understand. For the first time in his career, Admiral Zorax felt something he had never experienced before: fear. 6 months into the invasion, the Dominion forces were in retreat. They abandoned their forward positions and gathered in heavily defended landing zones. Their once perfect formations were broken. Their once flawless equipment was failing. Their once fearless soldiers were jumping at shadows. Admiral Zorax paced on the bridge of his flagship. The situation was beyond anything in his experience. In hundreds of conquests, the Dominion had never faced a defeat. Yet here they were, being driven back by primitives who shouldn't have been able to scratch their armor. I need reinforcements, he decided. We will request a second fleet from the homeworld. His communication officer looked nervous. Admiral, I've been trying to send that request for 3 days. Our long-range transmissions aren't getting through. Zorax froze. What do you mean they aren't getting through? Are they being blocked? No, sir, they're being changed. Every message we send is reaching the homeworld, but not with the content we intended. On Earth, in a repurposed radio station in Kenya, Abdi Hassan and his team monitored the alien communications. Abdi had been a computer scientist specializing in communication encryption. Now he used those skills to intercept and alter every message the Dominion tried to send home. They're asking for help again, Abdi told Jack Nelson over a secure line. We've changed the message to report that the situation is challenging but under control. Good, Jack replied. We need more time. The time Jack referred to was for human scientists to understand and reproduce the aliens' technology. In hidden labs around the world, teams worked day and night, combining stolen alien knowledge with human creativity. In Sydney, marine biologist Emma Taylor led a team studying the aliens' environmental adaptation systems. Their suits are designed to let them breathe and move in any atmosphere, she explained. We can modify this technology to help us explore the deepest parts of our oceans. In Moscow, physicist Dmitry Petrov studied their energy systems. Their power sources are incredibly efficient, he reported. If we can reproduce this, we could solve Earth's energy problems forever. In Cairo, Dr. Fatima Nasser studied their medical technology. Their tissue regeneration techniques could revolutionize medicine, she said excitedly. We could cure diseases that have always been fatal. Each discovery was shared globally. Old rivalries between nations were forgotten as humans united against a common enemy. Every breakthrough was immediately put to use, both to fight the Dominion and to improve life on Earth. Admiral Zorax finally received a response from the Dominion homeworld. It wasn't what he expected. Request denied, the message said. Explain failure. Zorax was stunned. In his entire career, he had never failed. The Dominion didn't tolerate failure. This is a misunderstanding, he replied immediately. The situation is complex but manageable. We do not need reinforcements. We will complete the conquest as planned. He turned to his war council. We have no choice. We must launch an all-out assault on their remaining strongholds. Commit every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. His officers looked doubtful. Admiral, one dared to speak. Our troops are exhausted. Our equipment is malfunctioning. Perhaps we should consider a strategic withdrawal to regroup. Withdraw in the face of primitives? Zorax snarled. The Dominion does not retreat. We will crush these humans and take their world as we have taken hundreds before it. But even as he said the words, a part of him knew they weren't true. Something had changed. The Dominion forces were losing, not because the humans were stronger, but because they were different, unpredictable, creative, and impossibly adaptive. In the underground base, Jack Nelson received word of the Dominion's planned final assault. They're getting desperate, he told General Miller. They're going to throw everything they have at us. Are we ready? Miller asked. Jack smiled. More than ready. The final battle began at dawn. Dominion ships descended from orbit, weapons blazing. Troops poured out in massive numbers, advancing toward human positions with a ferocity born of fear and desperation. But the humans were waiting. Using modified alien technology combined with their own innovations, they had prepared defenses the Dominion had never encountered before. In Chicago, Samantha Brown led her team in deploying environmental disruptors that made the aliens' breathing systems fail. In Rio, Carlos Mendez activated signal jammers that broke the aliens' communication networks. In Nairobi, Grace Okafor triggered devices that disabled the aliens' weapons by matching and reversing their energy frequencies. These weren't weapons of destruction. They were weapons of disruption, designed to render the enemy's technology useless without killing them. The Dominion troops faltered, then broke. What was supposed to be a glorious final victory became a chaotic retreat. Ships tried to return to orbit but found their navigation systems compromised. Ground forces tried to fall back to landing zones but became lost and separated. From the space station, Commander Kate Rogers watched Dominion ships colliding with each other as they tried to escape Earth's atmosphere. "They're in complete disarray," she reported. "They've lost all coordination." Jack Nelson received the news with quiet satisfaction. "It's time for the final message," he said. Using the communication systems they had reverse-engineered from the aliens, humans broadcast a message not just to the Dominion fleet, but to their homeworld and every planet in their empire. The face that appeared on Admiral Zorax's screen was Jack Nelson's. "Admiral," Jack said calmly, "when you arrived, we gave you one warning. You chose to ignore it. Now you understand why that was a mistake." Jack continued, "While you've been fighting, here we've been learning about the Dominion. Your empire is vast but stretched thin. Your leadership is rigid and unforgiving of failure. Your technology is advanced but designed with only one approach to warfare." Zorax stared at the screen in disbelief. "How did you access our Imperial network? This is impossible." 6 months ago it would have been impossible, Jack agreed. "But humans learn quickly. We've been broadcasting the story of your defeat to every world in your empire. Many are already beginning to question whether the Dominion is as invincible as they've been told." Jack's expression remained calm, but firm. "You have a choice now. Leave our solar system and never return, or be destroyed by the very technology you brought to conquer us." The retreat began within hours. The once mighty Dominion fleet limped away from Earth, their ships damaged, their soldiers demoralized, their mission an unprecedented failure. 1 year after the invasion began, the last alien ship disappeared from Earth's sensors. Humanity had survived, but they were no longer the same. With the knowledge gained from the Dominion, humans began advancing at an incredible rate. New energy sources, new medical treatments, new ways of growing food and cleaning the environment. 2 years later, Earth launched its first faster-than-light ship, built using reverse-engineered Dominion technology. 5 years later, human ambassadors made contact with other species that had suffered under Dominion rule. Alliances formed. Knowledge was shared. A new interstellar community began to grow, one based on cooperation rather than conquest. And throughout the galaxy, a story spread. The story of a small blue planet that had given just one warning before bringing a galactic empire to its knees. No other empire ever attempted to invade Earth again. They didn't need to be warned twice.